What do you get when you take a skateboarding Grim Reaper, a rich pretty boy who doesn't know how to do anything for himself, and the controls of a game like QWOP? Well, you get Manual Samuel. But is this game worth your time? Or is this game gonna have you wishing for death? Manual Samuel is a pretty oddball game. It's very comedic and actually made me laugh out loud on a few occasions. You're playing as Samuel, who ends up dying at the very beginning of the game after having his jaw broken by his girlfriend. He's never done anything for himself, and because of this, he has to kind of learn how to do everything from breathing to blinking, to of course moving his limbs. And every one of his actions are controlled by a different button on your controller. After Samuel is killed, he of course meets the Grim Reaper, who gives him one last shot at being able to come back alive. And you have to go through one crazy day along with this skateboarding Grim Reaper, trying to accomplish menial tasks and even some complicated ones like taking out robots in order to try to save the soul of the main character of Samuel. The game is broken up into 8 different chapters, with most of the gameplay having you control Samuel using the L2 and R2 buttons to move each one of his legs, having to manage his breathing at any point by breathing in with square, breathing out with circle, and also have to adjust his spine every once in a while as it just goes completely out of whack. If you end up running out of air, you'll pass out and have to manually breathe so you can actually get back to your feet, and any task you were doing at that point, you'll just end up dropping. Stuff as putting on your pants, putting shoes on, clothing of any kind, brushing your teeth, or even drinking coffee all become a pretty hard task when you're given the controls of a game like this. There are a couple levels that break up the gameplay, including the driving level, where of course you're not driving an automatic, it's a manual stick shift, so you have to manage changing gears, multiple pedals, and of course being able to swerve in and out of the lanes. Every one of the tasks is always a different button, so you really have to use your brain to kind of focus in and be able to kind of memorize what every one of the buttons do. Thankfully, there is no way to completely fail in the game, at least no way that I was able to. If you end up failing a task or fail a button press, it kind of just allows you to kind of reset. Sometimes it may put you back a little bit and you have to do the task all in order again in order to complete it, especially when it comes to the game's few little boss encounters, but for the most part, there's no way to completely fail and get a game over. The last couple levels of the game were really enjoyable, where you actually have Samuel in a giant robot, and even go down to hell to have to deal with Satan himself while trying to win Sam his life back. These change up the gameplay just like the driving level did, so the game doesn't ever really get too frustrating or too boring by any means. Unfortunately though, the game is extremely short. To beat the game's main 8 levels, it only took me an hour and 20 minutes to do so. Now there are even cutscenes before and during some of the levels. Even with those included, the game was still less than an hour and a half long. Once you complete the game, after you're beating each level, you do unlock the time trial mode for the main levels of the game, as well as the game actually does feature single player and co-op multiplayer, where you can give a buddy the controller and they can do some of the button presses for you. Basically, you assign them to a certain button and they can actually use that instead of you having to worry about certain features, such as maybe the breathing or the blinking. This is actually a pretty fun experience if you are able to get someone to actually go into it with you. From the technical side of things, everything ran smoothly. There was no glitching, no crashing, just those few little controller inconsistencies every once in a while, which easily could have been my own fault when it comes to the button presses. I mean, my hands were all spread out completely amongst my controller as I was playing, so anything's possible when it comes to that. And overall, the music that goes along with everything is not really special by any means, but it got the job done. It wasn't annoying and never became irritating to my ears. Manual Samuel is available on the PlayStation 4 for $9.99, and it does feature a full trophy list and a platinum. You do have to play through the game at least 3 times, once single player, once co-op, so you do need a second controller, as well as once to get through all the time trials. If you're pretty good at the levels and get through the time trials, it should only take you about 4 hours or so at most in order to obtain that platinum. With everything said though, I'm going to be giving the game a 5 out of 10. It made me laugh a few times, but overall, it's just okay of a game. It borderlines that bit of frustrating, but it was never overly so. But overall, there's just not enough there to really be a huge recommendation to too many out there. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.